All right. Good afternoon. Hello, hello. Today is June 10th. Man, mental health and me, we're in June. Episode 31. I'll be correcting the notes. Starring Jason Stoll. He just arrived. Hello, Jason. All right. Oh, there's Helena Ditko. Episode 31. Wow, this is a big deal. We're in the 30s already. All right, there you are.
Hey, can you hear me? Yes, no. That's gonna
Right.
take.
Check one, check two.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes. Can you see
Uh,
me?
I can see you.
All right. Hi, Jason. Welcome,
Hey,
welcome.
what's up?
Like your is that your home office or your other office?
No, it's home office. So yeah.
Yeah. It's a warmer day than usual. So
Oh, I know.
all right, guys. My name is Sally Sigario, inner voice coordinator with NAMI GLAC. Today's episode, Mental Health and Me, episode 31, is with Jason Stoll. Jason and I have known each other since birth. Well, since I was born, my grandma used to watch Jason and his sister all back in the days, a long time ago, almost 40 years ago.
Right, right.
Okay, so that's how I know him, and he has an amazing story with himself and his family, so that's why I wanted him to speak on behalf of Alzheimer's Awareness Month, which is June, and also Father's Day coming up. So the topics today are kind of heavy, for the most part but necessary to have this conversation. So Jason, kick it off. Where were you born? Where were you raised, and
Oh,
all that jazz?
oh, sure, sure, sure. So yeah, I was born in like London, England. Would you believe that or not? I don't have the
Oh,
British
no way.
accent. Yeah, so obviously my mom and dad met over there. My mom's Filipino. My dad is he was born in Guyana. I don't know if anybody knows where like Guyana is at, but it's a small country right above Brazil. So it has a lot of British influence. It was called British Guyana back in the day, if you know your history. So obviously people from there would migrate to England because that was like the mother country instead of migrating to the US. So my mom being from the Philippines, just like every other Filipino woman, wanted to study nursing. So she went there, tried to pursue a career in like nursing. It just didn't happen, but met my dad, had me. Then when I was about two, we came to
She went,
Southern.
so Jason, she migrated to England to be
Cor
pursue nursing.
Correct. Yes, correct. So over there, you gotta pay as you go. You can't borrow
Hmm.
money like you can like in the US and get in tons of debt, right? To go to school. So
Right?
yeah, so I guess that was kind of what prevented her from moving forward. But then yeah, so she had me. She had an opportunity to come to California, and you know, she had some siblings here already, so it just kind of made things a lot easier to kind of be stable here. And had two more kids, which is my two other sisters, Melissa and Beverly. So, and yeah, so that's where we're at. I mean, I'm in La Puente, California. This is where I'm gonna plant my flag.
Yeah, the bridge, right? La Puente means the bridge.
Yeah, yeah, Bridgetown, right?
For
Yeah,
sure. So
yeah.
how old were you when you came to California?
So I was about two. I was about
Okay.
two. Yeah. So yeah. So I was. I mean. So basically, I was. I mean, I was raised American. That's all I know. And obviously, what my dad has told me about England and going there and still having family on my dad's side, it's definitely great because I grew up with a lot of my mom's side of the family, which was like the Filipino side. So and as I got older and that I have more money, I could travel. So I've been trying to learn more about like my dad's side of the family like a lot more. So
Yeah.
yeah.
What an interesting way to start, your story. Like half of it I didn't know or
Oh
don't
yeah, yeah.
remember.
Okay.
I thought I even put it on the notes. Oh yeah, like native, native Angelino.
Well,
Practically, you are.
yeah, practically, yeah. I mean, don't worry. I mean, I love SoCal. I love LA County. This is where it's at. So,
For sure, for
yeah.
sure.
I mean, I don't.
So how was so you did mention quite a few things, the dynamics of your parents, your
Sure.
mom, Filipino, your dad, English influence, but Guyanan.
Yes.
So let's fast forward it to how was life growing up in middle school and high school
For for for
for you?
myself, for me.
Hmm.
Oh, okay, yeah. Middle school, high school. I would say, it wasn't too bad. Obviously, my dad couldn't work, because he was the one that had mental illness. My mom was the only breadwinner, so she had to shoulder a lot of the burden of raising a family of five, and bringing in the income, still being like the taking over like the I would say like the wife roles and like the mom role and all that. You know what I'm saying? So it was a lot for to shoulder. Um,
You,
but
you
it
mentioned your dad was diagnosed with mental illness. So do you remember what he initially was diagnosed and like how old you were?
Yeah, so I would say I was in the fifth grade. I was about maybe 9, 10 years old when my dad had his first episode. So mind you, he used to work like graveyard shifts for years, and just because it was just a little bit more money, like in his pocket, and working the graveyard shift, he could take care of us during the daytime, right? But it's still hard because I don't think us as humans, we're not meant to be like nocturnal. We need we need sleep. Like if
Yeah,
you
the
if
health.
you
Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So I mean, obviously, I think I was reading somewhere where if get less than 6 hours of sleep a day, like your body starts to age like quicker. So, and I think for him, like he's worked graveyard shifts for like maybe almost 20 years of his life up until that point. So I seen it take a toll on him. So he had a stroke, but then shortly after that, he got diagnosed with like depression. So,
So he had
so
a stroke before you were in middle school.
yes, yeah,
I did not know that. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah. He was
What
probably
age was
like,
that?
he was probably, he was probably like early 50s, I would
Oh
say.
wow.
It was minor, but obviously he like recovered. So I think that coupled with like him being diagnosed with depression, obviously he couldn't work a job anymore, because he up until that point my dad was the breadwinner, right? And obviously all that came out like that came into play. He just couldn't provide for his family, so that kind of weighed heavily on his mind and his body, and he
For
just couldn't come
you,
to
for you being the son with someone
uh
diagnosed with clinical depression,
uh
in your fifth, sixth grade, what did you see? Like you're looking back as an adult,
sure.
but do you remember how did you feel seeing it as a kid?
No, of course. Obviously coming home from like, let's just say like basketball practice, right? Because I was athletic, and coming home, obviously my dad was home, but he wasn't as engaged. He would just be sitting in the corner staring at the wall. Like,
Mm.
you know what I'm saying? Like he would definitely get us up out of bed and get ready to like, go to school, but coming home he wouldn't do anything else. Like I just wouldn't see him do anything.
Mm.
So, and he just wanted to be left alone, right? So I mean it didn't happen a lot, but I mean like you could definitely tell like something was off.
Yeah,
So,
and you noticed that. Like you're so young to notice that,
right.
hey, dad's not the same.
Yeah, he's not the same. He's not the
Oh
same.
wow.
And then as the years progressed and I guess his illness morphed into more or like schizophrenia, and it became, what was it, schizoaffective disorder, which is half schizophrenia, half depression. So, he had the highs and lows of being manic. Um, he would hear things, he would kind of see things, and yeah, he would talk like a mile a minute. He just loved to talk. I mean, like he was a talker, right?
Hmm.
But he just didn't have any cues when to shut
Stop.
up, when
Hmm.
to stop. He would just keep going, and then I knew that okay, like there's something wrong with dad, and it'll be more so even when he wasn't taking his meds like on a regular basis. So
Yeah,
um,
that's really rough, to witness all of that so young.
Right.
into middle school and high school, your mom having to provide and be the mom and work, and your dad just being home. How did you guys cope? How did your siblings, how did your mom cope with your dad initially in the beginning?
Like my parents are older. They're from the old school, so I think for my mom, she just had to just keep going. Like she couldn't think about anything else. It was just about trying to like bring in income. Because mind you, my dad was the only breadwinner, and then when he got sick, my mom knew nothing about the finances, what was being paid, all that was just like it just fell upon her. So she had to be
Mhm.
like a detective to figure all this out. And you know, well, I think from what she told me, she almost lost like the house because things weren't being paid. Like my dad wasn't paying things,
Yeah.
because he was sick. We just didn't
Yeah.
know. So
Wait,
uh,
what do you mean we just didn't know? Like,
we
so he
just
was
we
diagnosed.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I guess obviously, like there was I don't know. It was just this is just like what my mom told me. Like I think there was things leading up to where he was just stressed out, and this happened, and my mom found out that you know like bills weren't getting paid or this. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, because for those that are listening, by the way, thank you so much for joining. You have quite a group of friends here. I don't know any of these
yeah.
names, so they're all
Okay.
your friends.
Okay.
So hi Bethany. So I'm gonna give her a shout out.
Okay.
I went to have some food at True Food Kitchen, and she introduced today for my daughter's graduation, and
Right.
she introduced it to me. I'm not doing like these endorsements. Anyway, so back to your dad. So that's such an interesting thing you
Hmm.
said is that all these things were happening and you guys had no clue.
We had
Like
no
when
clue.
you knew he was diagnosed, but you're like, what the heck's happening? Because keep in mind, for those on this on the live right now, this is like early '90s. Early '90s mental illness awareness. There was no awareness.
Right. Exactly.
There
Yeah.
was just you deal and you deal, and compared to now, 30 years later, where you have like mental health awareness month, it's
Correct.
totally different. So.
Correct. Yeah.
Mhm.
So no, yeah. So like I said, I mean, like my mom was blindsided. We were young. I mean, I don't know anything, come on. I'm a minor, right? So, but yeah, my mom had to figure it all out. She just luckily she had a, pretty strong support system. She's strong with her faith. She's very like religious. I mean, she was raised Catholic, but she became a born again Christian like later on. But no, yeah, she just kept pressing on. I mean, although my dad was sick, he was still able to take care of us. You know what I'm saying? Like us three. So he wasn't a danger to himself or to us until maybe later on, as he got older, and he just couldn't like he couldn't deal with it. But like he would never hurt us. You know.
Mhm.
Um, he made sure that we were fed. Obviously, we were clean. Like went to school, but he just wasn't as engaging. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? Like, I mean, he was present, but I would have had loved for him to, you know, maybe come over, like come see me practice or come to my basketball games or come, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I mean, so that
To
was just like
initiate, to engage, initiate, to be a part of your life.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
glad you
yeah.
really said that. I like Jason. I'm glad that you mentioned that. He was available to be there for you in terms of basic needs,
Right.
but not he was in danger. Because I don't think people know that not the entire population knows that just because you're diagnosed doesn't mean you're going to hurt someone close to you or hurt yourself. It just means that you're ill, like anything else, and you
Correct.
need
Yeah.
treatment. Mhm.
Correct. Yeah. But as my dad got older, and my mom, I wish she did more to like learn about the disease more and how to cope with it more. Because my dad would, when whew, like his hallucinations would go crazy, he would hide knives like under his pillow. This is from what my mom was telling me, and like, because he would hear things, right, and he would he would think that he's getting robbed or someone's coming in to like hurt us, or so he would just, which is fine. But my mom got scared because
Of
you know,
course.
she was scared because you have all these knives under a pillow, and it's like he could one day maybe just mistake her for like an intruder, or you know what I'm saying? So that was her fear, because like one day I was like, Mom, like where are all the knives at? Like, I want to cut some apples, right? Come on.
Yeah.
So, well, she hit him. I'm like, oh, okay. And then this is, it's like, okay. But my mom wasn't, she pretty much shouldered everything. Like, she was a caretaker for him, and she really didn't. educate us, I guess, us kids enough on the disease or what was going on. It's just she just kind of just said, you know what, like your dad's just a little off today, but like he'll be fine. You know,
Yeah.
it's just one of those things just to keep like disregarding it, but like let's just stick to school. Let's just stick, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah, she was trying to protect you guys from the world she was already involved with
right.
your dad. But dang, Jason, that's a lot of stuff. We're not even in the college years. You're still in high school?
Oh yeah, well yeah, I would say this is more yeah, middle school into maybe me leading up into high school. It maybe calmed down a little bit though, but obviously that was when, come on. I'm a young teenager, right? I'm like rebellious.
You don't want to be home? Yeah.
I don't want to be
You
home, and it's just like you see your dad just not being as engaged as a father, and like as a teenager, like you just do your own thing, right? And you start acting crazy, and you know what I'm saying? So I did kind of get away with like a lot of things, you know, as a teenager,
Mhm.
which like in hindsight, I wish I would have like learned more about on like how to help my dad, but I guess that was my way of trying to like cope with things too,
For
because
sure.
I didn't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it. I just wanted to do my own thing. I don't want to get to like, because sometimes you try to like wrestle with that feeling. It's like, damn, like my dad's not doing anything. Like I don't want to come home to like a depressive like father
Hmm.
every single day. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying?
Yeah. And a frustrated
Um
mom.
and a frustrated mom who at the point was going through menopause, which we didn't know as well. So it was a perfect storm for like a lot of things. And as I gotten older and then I went off to college, that was probably like a turning point because my mom became born again Christian by then and really just kind of like let things go and just kind of
Hmm.
just like, hey, you know what? You're older now. I'm not going to worry about you. I'll just take care of your sisters and dad and just go do your thing out there. So, which was fine because my mom was strict. Like you probably like remember her. She was tough.
Well, she
She's
wasn't my mom, so I didn't know her that way. I liked her from
okay.
what I saw.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
You know,
But yeah,
her name
but
is
she,
Sally. Her Auntie Maria's name is also Sally, so it's Salvacion. So
yeah.
your dad would like tell me stories like, oh yeah, Sally. I'm like, who? I'm
Right, right.
Sally.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it was just easier for my dad to say Sally instead of Maria. So
Yeah, that's his wife. For
yeah,
sure.
yeah. No, yeah.
That's his wife. Wow,
So
Jason,
so
I'm really like, I need to digest everything you shared because we don't have enough time to talk about every stage. I would love to have like another one or two episodes extra to this because this story you're sharing is so important and so unique, but also relatable because the
right.
facing you're not the one with a diagnosis. Your dad is, and and you're soon to go to your mom and that's a lot of weight to carry as a young
Sure.
man.
Oh,
That's a
sure.
lot of weight. I do want to dive into a little bit though. You mentioned before when we spoke privately about the dynamics of how your mom and dad were raised in terms of trauma and mental health. Can you go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, yeah. So my dad was born in the early 30s, I think like 1933. So growing up in Guyana, I mean, he came from like modest means. He wasn't they weren't well off. He was maybe the I think second oldest of like nine kids, I think. And my mom was the youngest of nine. So, growing up in the Philippines. So my dad grew up like kind of during like wartime, like World War
Hmm.
II time, and then obviously it was hard. And then depression happened like in 29 here in the States. So it affected everything, right? So I mean, it was a tough time for the whole world around that time. So and then my dad went into the service when he migrated to England. Um, and then my mom, being that she was born like in the 40s. She grew up she was born, well, from what she told me, she was born in like a internment camp, which was kind of interesting. Um, and she grew up poor. I mean, come on, it's like the Philippines from where she was living. It's pretty much third world.
At that time, yeah.
Um, Yeah. So, but no, it was hard for her. It was hard for her growing up. I mean, her being the youngest, she would say that she wouldn't get much, you know. Luckily, she had her older sisters to kind of help look after her. But the chance she got to leave the Philippines, she took that opportunity. So,
Hmm.
um,
So what happened? So for those, we have some people on this on the live and are watching. Like, why were some Filipinos in internment camps in the 40s?
well, yeah, because I mean, obviously, I think back then when Japan was trying to conquer the world, you know, in addition to like Germany, they, I, let's see here. I think, I think, gosh, I'm just trying to like recollect my history now. But there was obviously we had camps here like in the US, but over there was camps over there too. So there was a fear, right? So I don't know why she was there. That's just from what
This
she
is
had
my
told me.
PSA. So everyone to fact
Yeah,
check us, but also talk to your relatives, talk to your parents,
yeah,
your grandparents, and what they experienced, because this is important to, you know, we're going over this because this is important to Jason's story of how that trauma really affected their parents going into America and raising them and your
correct.
siblings. Hmm.
Yeah, so it was just like a tough time for the world around that time, right? So I mean,
Hmm.
I you know obviously like we wouldn't know, um, but these are just things that my mom has told me. So I don't know if they were like displaced or whatever had happened to
Yeah, people
her.
were displaced. Yeah, during
Yeah,
the war.
so maybe that's just where they were put up, like in a sense until they were gaining like their footing again,
Hmm.
down there. So. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, you know, they basically just grew up during like wartime, really. They were
Something I
young.
learned about that, especially with refugees, is that they just learn how to keep quiet, right? And like press it down.
Yeah, so I mean, so that was my dad's way.
Hmm.
It's just to kind of like hold things in, just you know, just kind of pull yourself from like your bootstraps and just keep going forward, you know, don't worry about it, just keep going. I mean, so that's why it's like for him to try to like understand why he didn't have why he lacked the motivation to do something, you know? He just couldn't he just couldn't understand it. My mom didn't understand it, you know? So um so that was kind of what my dad had to wrestle with is just, um just what he was thinking and feeling, and it's like he just can't get up to go to work anymore. He just didn't know why, right? And my mom couldn't understand that. So, but yeah, that's just the mentality. It's just, I think a lot of people like with mental health, like illness, they just kind of just push it off to the side and just, whatever, or or maybe the family's like, well, you know what, like don't worry about it, it'll just pass, right? But no, you gotta let yourself feel these things and try to understand that, you know, hopefully if you could try to get to that point where you could, say that you need help, because that's like the hardest three words to say when you do have like an illness. You definitely want to try to reach out. So
Did he ever got to that point where your dad asked he acknowledged that he needed help?
it was all I can't recall,
Hmm.
because it was always actively trying to get him to trying to get him help. My mom would always try to wrestle with him with trying to figure out like what's going on with him, trying to find the right medications for him. I mean, and then at a point where he thought he was good, he would stop it, right? Because I was like, oh, okay,
Hmm.
I think I feel fine now. But then no, he would just regress back because he wasn't taking it. But he needed once he had that diagnosis, it was definitely lifelong like medication for him. He couldn't stop taking it.
Hmm.
He needed to keep it going. But he always thought that he could try to beat it in a sense.
Yeah.
I would say the best way to describe my dad was it, I would say, and my mom, was that movie like A Beautiful Mind with like Russell Crowe and like Jennifer Connelly.
Hmm.
So Russell Crowe was my dad. You know, he was smart. I mean, like the man knew like his history. Like he loved to read, and but he had like some OCD. Like, I mean, like there would be a scene in the movie where, you know, like Jennifer Connelly's trying to look for him, but he was in like this little like barn house type
Shed, yeah.
building. Yeah,
Shed.
like a shed. And you could see things plastered all over the wall, paper, string, like things that, you know, pictures. Like that was my dad. He had post-its and things plastered all over the house. It was just crazy. Like it just on everything, like health, nutrition, this,
Yeah. His
like
mind is
it,
super active.
it was
Super active mind.
it was so active. And it's because, you know, he loved health and nutrition because he thought that he could try to beat the disease by, you know, like feeding himself with like the right things, but he just couldn't.
Hmm.
He just couldn't.
Hmm.
And I think that's where I kind of get like my love for health.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
so
for those who have not seen A Beautiful Mind, it came out in the year 2000. A
right,
great movie. And for me, it helped explain a lot. And what Jason's talking about that scene is I have experience with psychosis,
sure,
and when I saw that movie with that scene, it freaked me out and hella triggered me because I know how it feels like to be
right,
so elevated and
yes,
racing thoughts, thinking you
yes.
know all the answers, just overwhelmed and tired. So you're better. But when I saw that scene, I was like, I felt so humiliated.
No, no, well, yeah,
I'm like, I'm not that powerful. I don't have
yeah,
all the
yeah.
answers.
No, of course. I mean, you know, sometimes you think, you know, because my dad was a smart man. He thought he could outsmart the disease, but the disease is in his head. You know what I'm saying?
Mm, yeah.
You just can't do that. You just can't do that,
Hmm.
and it's just hard. It's hard to come to, like, you know, come to terms with that. So, you know, knowing that you need to be on medication to keep going, to keep living, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's I would say
Okay,
that's
so that's some background. That's a lot of background. Thank you so much
yeah,
for sharing all this, Jason. So college happens. You graduate from Cal State Long Beach, woo woo, and
yeah,
then
for sure. Yeah, Long
and
Beach State.
then you find the love of your life, Genesis, I
Yeah.
believe at the Mayan.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean,
It's a,
yeah, we had a class together, but you know, that's the first time I kind of laid eyes on her.
have two kids, and then so I believe you guys are living in Long Beach, and you had to move back home. Correct? You're
Yeah,
married
so
and back home.
yeah. So obviously, yeah. The reason why I moved back home because I thought I could live in Long Beach forever, but you know, my mom kept, you know, calling me because she needed help because, you know, my dad was like a lot to handle. You know, as he gotten older, my mom's getting older as well. So, you know, he wasn't taking his medication. My mom had a hard time trying to give it to him. Um, so yeah, I moved in for a little bit. Was that tough on my wife? It was, you know, because I mean, this wasn't part of the package moving in with, you know, elderly like in-laws, and one of them is like, you know, sick, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, um, so we tried it for about like a year and a half. We moved out a little bit in an apartment just kind of close by, because I thought I could try to handle all, you know, still trying to still help my dad out and my mom out while still going to work, while still trying to raise, you know, like my kids. But eventually I had to move back in because I said, you know what, forget it. Let me. So it was a lot of convincing my wife because, you know, I had to sell her the dream that, you know, it was going to be short-lived because, yeah, it was a lot of like persuasion because it's tough, man. It's tough for myself to take care of the elderly parents as well as like the younger kids because I mean they call it the sandwich generation and like gerontology, right? Um, but then trying to, you know, trying to be a husband, you know what I'm saying? So I'm surprised my wife is still with me because it's tough on the marriage. Yeah, it's really
Mhm.
tough. So um,
Well, yeah, because your marriage is not it is the primary priority, but
oh,
you have your kids and your parents' marriage, your parents' health, and you're
oh,
all in one house.
right.
Man.
Yeah, it isn't. Yeah, I mean, it would be different if my parents were like, you know, were a bit like younger and like they're in like better health. But no, this is just what it was. So
Mhm.
um, so me being the person that I would say I was at more of an advantage because this is what I've studied like in college. But to
Yeah,
try
what
to
was your
educate.
major, by the way? What was your
Uh,
major and the type of jobs you had? Because I think that helped a lot with how you make decisions for your parents.
oh no, no, of course, yeah. So at Long Beach State, I studied like human development, minored in like health science. So, but my emphasis was more on like gerontology, right? Because the study of aging and how you feel, think, what your body goes through throughout the whole like lifespan, right?
And you picked that gerontology because your parents. Do you think if your parents were not ill that you'd be in the same field?
Right, because I've always known that I had like an older dad, opposed to like some of my friends who had younger dads, right? My dad was older. I mean, this is his second go around with kids, right? Because I have a half brother who's about maybe 15 years older than me, who lives in England still, and so this is my dad's second time at like a family, so he was older. I think he was like in his mid 50s when he had Beverly, like my youngest sister. So it's like that's pretty late to have kids, man.
Hmm.
So I mean, and to raise three young kids, I mean, shoot, I'm I'm a young 40s, right? And I have a hard time just with my two right now, right? So, but my dad being like maybe like 10 years older, like wow, it's just a lot. It's just a lot.
It's a different
So
game.
yeah,
Different game.
it's a different game. Um, so yeah, so I mean, so that kind of did have an influence on me, of like learning that field. And originally I wanted to get into like physical therapy because I wanted to work for the Lakers, I don't know. Whatever, but that didn't happen. So shortly after college, I got into like the home care industry. So Kelly Home Care Services. So I got a little taste of what that side of like business and marketing was all about. Recruiting caregivers to take care of the elderly like in their homes. So that was my first shot at like understanding like like senior care,
Hmm.
right? And then from there, I went into working for what was that? A national online research or online like company for senior care services, which was a place for mom. So I would be the go-to person to advise families as to what to do with their elder, like like loved one, if they needed help with like home care or like assisted living facilities or residential boarding care. I was that go-to person to try to
So you're
help
like
them.
a planner, like a financial planner, but you're like a home
Kind of
health planner
kind of
ish.
yeah, kind of like senior placement, just kind of placing the person who needs help. So I was like their number one like resource for that. So
That's
uh
really neat that you were led in this path in your
yeah,
career, but
right.
it's for information to how to help your family
No, of
directly.
course. Right, yeah. So that's why long-term care is so important. I mean, obviously people love to plan for now, but they don't plan for, like to get old, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's just what it is. Like we want to YOLO all day, right? But no, I mean, come on. You gotta understand that you're gonna get older. Because my mom even said, you know what, I never thought I was gonna get old, but here we are, right? I mean, here we are,
Hmm.
right? So I mean, it's time's not waiting for anybody. So we gotta plan to have long-term, or to address long-term care, um, like issues, and just kind of, educate your family on it and just kind of plan for that.
So what do
Because
you mean by that? Like to plan for long-term healthcare, long-term care, how are
sure.
ways people can do that? What did you find out? What were the obstacles for you? And then what are things that are working for you guys now?
No, so for me, obviously since I come from the industry, like I knew that I would try the route. Well, obviously, because my mom right now she's 76 years old. For those that don't know, she has like dementia, and she's in a residential boarding care home. So it's a six-bed facility. Um, but yeah, so she in the beginning when she was diagnosed, I did have a home caregiver come and like help her out because you know she was falling a lot. She just couldn't get on with her day-to-day things, like just her basic activities of daily living, getting dressed, helping her with walking, things like that, just for meals. So I tried that route with having a home caregiver, which worked out fine. But as her level of care like increased over time, I needed like more 24-hour care. So that's the
Yeah.
reason why I had found like a facility. And all this was kind of found through like the social worker at the nursing care home. Because when she had a bad fall, that's how I got connected with like the social worker there. And
Resources.
yeah, so they were helpful with like, resources like in the area, and did the research. Obviously, it comes at a financial cost. A lot of people think that long-term care could be paid for through like Medicare, I
Hmm.
mean, or like Medi-Cal, but that's only for skilled care. But it doesn't help pay for someone that needs to live beyond like their rehab. You know what I'm saying? Um, it doesn't help pay for like someone who needs like their meals, or to help
Hmm.
to get dressed, or to remind them to take their meds, or like different things like that, like to help them like run their errands or take care of their finances. Like that doesn't
Not
pay
part of
for
it.
that. Yeah, and that's and
So,
that's the that's probably like the biggest like thing that people don't understand is that,
yeah.
oh yeah, well, I think Medicare or like Medi-Cal
Will
or
take care of us. Yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, and the thing that yes, and the thing that your Social Security could pay for this, it could pay for it, but the cost for like long,
Expensive.
yeah, it's expensive. It's really expensive. And I'll just throw out like I'll throw out like a figure. Right now, I'm spending about like 50K like a year just for my mom's care, and that's
For
and
one
that's cheap,
person, for one room,
and that's cheap.
one bed, not even a room, a bed.
It's yeah, it's she shares a room. You know what I'm saying? So and maybe double that. It could cost up to like maybe six
Easily.
figures a year easily. So yeah, so that's just
If you
so
could do things all over again with this topic, say about long-term care, with
sure.
knowing what you know, what would have done at age 40 for you and Genesis?
As far as like long-term care. Uh,
Yeah. So like, what are they like for
to
our
help.
age right now? For
Oh
for
yeah.
us.
Oh sure. Yeah. No. Sure. I mean, honestly, it's to. I would say the best thing to do is obviously save and invest, but if you could buy into uh, a long-term care policy, like an insurance policy, because I don't think too many people understand that, but there are private insurance companies that could sell like a policy that could help offset the cost of that care. So it
Hmm.
could pay for like a daily benefit per day, to help pay for like your living expenses there, and it's just like insurance, really.
Hmm.
That's just what it is. So
What
like
if you're about retiring age from your company, 65? What can you do then?
you
But
can
it's higher premiums, right? Same thing, but just way high premiums.
exactly, yeah. It's just
Hmm.
it's insurance, right? The younger you are, the cheaper it is. The older you are, the more expensive the premiums are going to be. But I wouldn't rule it out.
Hmm.
Something to offset the cost of care is better than nothing, because obviously when you're in your 60s, you don't have as much like income potential. I mean, I don't know, and I don't know how like your health is going to be at that time. I'll be like, knocking on like retirement, but um, no, I would say, there's basically three ways to pay for long-term care, and or to get help. And as far as long-term care, it's either like you help like your loved one, you know, basically like you do all the work yourself, right? Or you have family do it, or like you got to pay for like out of pocket, you
Hmm.
know. And then it's achievable. I mean, people sell their homes, people like reduce all of their assets, and just kind of just exhausted. You could try to do that to kind of maybe see
Yeah.
if you could qualify for some other special like programs. But you don't want to do that. You don't want to make yourself look poor, right? Just
Yeah.
on paper, to try to like
Yeah.
because who's to say that you might even get the quality of care,
Hmm.
so but yeah, everything's expensive in the US, guys.
Yeah.
nothing
So no,
yeah
this is
nothing's
a great
free.
message,
Yeah,
especially Jason. Like, like how you mentioned before, how your mom's like, I didn't plan on being old.
sure.
I didn't.
Right.
So Jason is not a insurance policy, long-term healthcare expert. He's just advocating for it because it's expensive. And one of divorces usually with like a divorce, finances are a huge strain. Same thing with death and dying, aging and dying is the strain of finances. So it is wise to look into some type of insurance policy now while you can versus
Of
you don't
course.
have no option and they're gonna take everything.
Yeah, no, no. Well, yeah, for sure. So yeah, so that's just what it is. I mean, you know, I would look into something like that. But if you got the money, why not? You know,
For sure.
families, you know, ask for like extended help, you know, like extended families to help pay for this. So, or
Hmm.
you know, but I mean, who has money laying around these days, right?
Just save all the stimulus checks, guys. Save. Don't go to Nordstrom's. Save your stimulus checks.
Oh yeah.
Uh, all right. So I do want to, you know, at the we'll have some time later for those that are on. If you have any questions, particularly for Jason and his story with his parents, with himself, and how he does stuff, please put your questions in the chat box. So, you know, Jason's open to answer some questions at the end. But I do want to talk about a little bit. So I know your dad, he passed away like 3 years ago, correct?
Yeah, about 3 years ago. Uh-huh.
3 years ago. So was it a stroke? Like, how did he pass?
Yeah, it was a massive stroke. So I think from what the medical professionals told me, it was like a golf-sized ball, like blood clot. I mean,
Hmm.
like a golf-sized ball. Like, so it just kind of just traveled into, I think from somewhere, and then it just went into his brain, and that was it.
That's huge.
So yeah, so then yeah, so that happened, wow, 2017, December.
So
I,
wait, how was he though before his stroke though? Did he have other strokes or he was
no,
functional?
that yeah, he was. I mean, like I said, he was able to function, but like it was just a hard time trying to get him to like you know like take his meds, try to help him to get dressed, to even take a shower, to eat. Um, it's funny how like like you read all these things like like in books, but when you see it come to life, it's like, oh shit, you know. I mean, I
It's
was in
real.
denial. Yeah, yeah, it's pretty much real. But I was in denial though. I was like, I don't know. I don't know why I kind of froze up, like to see your loved one just like kind of decline like that. Um, and like the last 6 months, I should have saw the signs because he wasn't eating as much, and like eating is a huge indicator, right? He wasn't eating as much like solids anymore. A lot of what he
Was this
would do.
after the stroke or is this when
This
the
is
depression?
Yeah, no, this is things leading up to the stroke. But
Okay.
like he was still going through all, he's like his mental illness and stuff. Um, but I think this was his way of like his body preparing to like die, which
Hmm.
is or to go. And yeah, so that was it. I would say like maybe like a week before he wasn't eating at all, and then and then that was it. So, but as soon as he had the stroke, he probably like lived for about 2 more weeks after that. Um, and then I had to make the decision to pull him off, like the G2 feeding.
Hmm.
And I wish I had things in writing, which is why I always tell people like, you know, have your loved one get like things in writing, like it's a will or a living trust or something, because it makes life way easier to
Hmm.
try to like manage, people's affairs. And um, but yeah, like we didn't have that. I mean, it was all talk between having it to do with my mom and my dad to try to get all that. And I kept pushing him, but it's just they kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And I
Hmm.
was like, okay, no, we need to get this done for my mom because she didn't have nothing in place. I did all within a week, like a week's time after my dad passed.
For your
So
mom.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. Forget that
Because
crap.
I'm not going through this. Yeah, because
Yeah,
especially with those kind of companies that deal with death and dying after,
right,
it's so hard to make a decision because you're grieving and
right.
there's trying, yeah, like from the funeral plots to that all that crap. Yeah,
It's
it's so
it's
hard to make
it's
decisions when you're
it's
grieving.
yeah, no, for sure. But it's hard to talk finances with your parents and to tell
Mm.
them that you need to take over.
Hmm.
And you know what I'm saying? Like especially for my mom who's all about money. She's all about like investing. She wanted to manage it all, but she couldn't.
Yeah.
She couldn't. She was on the decline at the same time with my dad towards the end, like when my dad was leaving. And I
So
could
she
see it.
got diagnosed with dementia right before your dad
Uh,
passed.
yeah, I would say well, she had a stroke. It's funny because she had a stroke like 6 months before that, and and
Hmm.
and I didn't even know. I mean, I just thought my mom was getting old and she just declined, but no, it was a stroke. So um, but yeah, no, she up until that point she was trying to manage everything, but she couldn't. So
Hmm.
that's why I just had to step in. But I kept telling, I said, Mom, you know what? You could pay the bills, but I'm gonna oversee it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look over
You
your
can
shoulder.
press up, you can press yes, but
Right, right.
you can click the button. You can
Yes.
sign. Yeah.
So yeah, so one of the biggest mistakes that my mom did, she forgot to pay a bill, and it was like a $5,000 bill that like it was like a mistake. I said, nah,
Hmm.
we're cutting that out. So and then
Yeah.
she had to see it for herself though.
Hmm.
That's for her to lose that much money, she's like, yeah, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, but that is hard though, trying to convince your loved ones
Parents.
that yeah, like
The
if
parents
it's
that raised you to say, I
right,
need to take over.
right,
Wow,
right,
Jason, my gosh. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable to share and to be in this space.
right.
Um, Usually these stories that when I interview, I don't know if you got a chance to read the other interviews, we go into like hopes and dreams and successes. And
Mhm.
something I want to share with you, being your friend and seeing your posts on Facebook, especially about your dad and your mom, is that even though there's so much struggle with this topic, um, mental illness and taking care of parents, it's nice to see your parents' strength and their struggle in the way you talk about your parents. So like if you're friends with Jason on Facebook, like the way I think like last year or 2 years ago during your dad's death anniversary, just all the things you wrote about your dad and like his journey to the United States and to have 3 more kids here in California. I'm just super encouraged that even though it's hard, it sounds very difficult and very hard. I'm glad that you're still strong for you, your wife, your children, your family to tell the story of
Right.
your parents, because they didn't come from an easy place,
No,
yeah.
no, yeah,
And
no. They weren't well off. Come on. I mean, it's just
mhm,
they came from other parts of the world, and they came to America to, have a better opportunity, obviously.
yeah.
So, and obviously, I give all the credit to my mom because she is the one who managed to hold it together, especially in times where, you know, like we were little, my dad was like having his first episodes and was sick and he couldn't bring in any income. My mom was the one that held it together. Like even when people were saying, "Hey, you know what? Like, why don't you leave your husband? He's not," you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
these are like coworkers, and I think she mentioned like some friends and maybe who knows, maybe some family might have mentioned. But why don't you just leave like Dennis? And it's like, my mom's like, why would I want to leave like my husband? I know he's not, he can't provide, he can't do all these things, but like that's my husband. Like I made a vow, right? So
Yeah,
for
they're back together.
yeah, like in
Yeah.
sickness and in health, right? That's just what it is. So like, when do you get
Hmm.
married, right? So but yeah, so my mom being that she was really like good with her money, she knew
Hmm.
how to make it grow. And I fast forward to now, we wouldn't be able to afford the things that we could afford and to help my mom out if it wasn't for my mom. You know what I'm saying? So that's just what it is. So
She equipped and
um,
trained you guys.
she
Yeah.
did, yeah. So she did. She was good with the finances, so I'm good with everything else. I'm good.
And
I'm
also,
good.
I wanted
Yeah.
to say how it's so encouraging that even though your parents didn't know how to articulate their story, their emotions, their feelings at that time, how it's awesome that you're able to do it for them, you know, in
Oh
a
yeah.
way that's relatable, palatable. And then there's a lot of heart there, their heart is seen through your words.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they weren't the best communicators. I mean, come on.
All right.
But
I do have
you
one
know,
more question for you as we wrap up. Um, Actually, two. I'm going to say it in one question. What does your support system look like now? And what are words of wisdom you'd give someone whose journey is beginning?
what does my support system look like now?
Yeah.
Um, well, I got family that's always I could always like lean on. My wife
Mm-hmm.
is my wife is probably the biggest supporter, because she's in the fight with me, obviously, day in and day out. So obviously having a very supportive spouse like makes a big deal, like a big difference, to kind of like keep going. Um,
Mm-hmm.
And what was the second part of the question? Um,
That's another question.
yeah.
So everyone needs a Genesis. And
Yeah.
the last question is, what words of wisdom would you give someone whose journey is just beginning?
Beginning as far as
Their parents have,
caring,
yeah, caring for your
like
parents who are ill.
caring for, yeah, for who are ill. I would say, like get to know who they are, really, just like their origins and, you know, just how they were raised. And luckily for me, like I wrote a paper about my dad, like his whole like life history from birth to, I forgot how old he was at the time, but like I learned a lot from him. I definitely like learned a lot from him, and just what his thought process was at certain times of his life. But yeah, just get to know your parents, get to know like they're obviously, like culture has a lot to do with it. But um, just kind of educating yourself on like the disease. I wish my mom would have like took the time to kind of like help us understand it more. But you know what, she didn't. So it was just only until I was able to go to college I could read up on it more and kind of like dive into it more. And um, but yeah, I would just say just educate yourself, get to know that person, lean on a lot of friends and family, I would say does help, you know. And I think that's pretty much it though. I would say someone who's just trying to start out, Um, yeah, I would say that's pretty much it.
All right, Jason, thank you so much for all your words of wisdom, your patience, a lot of sharing and vulnerability. Feel free to look through the comments. You have a few there. And anyone else watching, if you have a question or comment for Jason, go ahead and put in the chat so he can see the love. And
I can't really see the love. I don't know where, maybe it's
yeah, I saw from Bethany Thrasher, she said, thank you for sharing your journey.
oh, okay,
Yeah, I
great.
don't know if you saw that.
No.
And then all these people, I see you have a fan club.
Oh, I do. Okay.
Yeah,
Hi,
Helena
everybody.
Dick was here too. She's like, she works she's working at DMH. So these are big people here. All right, once again, Sally Sigario, Mental Health and Me with Jason Stoll episode. You'll find out in the notes because I
All
don't
right,
think
cool.
it's 3, but it might be 32. I will send you the link.
All
All
right.
right, guys, thanks for joining. Jason, amazing story. Like
Yeah,
I had to
thank you for
hold
having me.
back some tears.
Oh yeah, no, it's all good.
I was like, not today, not today.
Ah,
All right, and in advance, happy Father's Day, and thanks for sharing all this stuff.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate
You're
it.
the best.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.